Tokyo in early 1945 was a city holding its breath. From a distance, it still looked like the heart of an empire. From the inside, it was already dying. The Japanese capital had not yet been reduced to ashes, but the signs of collapse were everywhere. Food was rationed to starvation levels. Trains barely ran. Factories worked with children and the elderly, their strongest workers already sent to distant fronts or buried in foreign soil. The streets were dark at night, lights forbidden to avoid enemy bombers. Air raid sirens had become part of daily life, their wails no longer causing panic but exhaustion. The war had drained the city not with a single blow, but with slow, relentless pressure. Japan had entered the Second World War convinced of its destiny. Imperial expansion was not seen as conquest, but as divine right. The emperor was sacred. The nation eternal. But by 1945, the illusion had shattered. The navy that once dominated the Pacific lay at the bottom of the ocean. The army bled endlessly in China, Burma, and island after island seized by American forces. The sky, once uncontested, now belonged to the enemy. High above Tokyo, American reconnaissance planes flew unchallenged, photographing streets, factories, neighborhoods, and homes. The war was no longer distant. It was overhead. The Japanese government understood what was coming. They just did not know when or how. The United States had shifted its strategy. The goal was no longer simply to defeat Japan's military, but to break its ability and will to continue fighting. Precision bombing had failed. Japanese industry was decentralized. Factories were hidden among civilian neighborhoods. Small workshops produced critical components inside wooden homes. The solution was brutal and deliberate. Fire. Tokyo was uniquely vulnerable. The city was built largely of wood and paper. Houses stood close together, narrow streets forming perfect channels for flames. Under the right conditions, Tokyo could burn like a single living organism. And American planners knew it. In Washington and on the island of Tinian, a new plan was forming. It would not target military bases alone. It would target the city itself. The people. The planners believed that destroying Tokyo would cripple production, shatter morale, and send a message impossible to ignore. The man chosen to execute this plan was General Curtis LeMay. Aggressive, unapologetic, and convinced that overwhelming force was the fastest way to end the war. LeMay abandoned high-altitude precision bombing. He ordered low-level night raids using incendiary weapons. Weapons designed not to explode, but to ignite. The B-29 Superfortress became the instrument of destruction. Capable of carrying massive bomb loads across the Pacific, it was unlike anything Japan could effectively stop. Japanese air defenses were outdated. Fighter planes lacked fuel, trained pilots, and radar coordination. Anti-aircraft guns were few and inaccurate. At night, Tokyo was nearly defenseless. By March 1945, everything was in place. The weather conditions were ideal. Low winds at altitude, strong winds at ground level. The perfect recipe for a firestorm. Japanese civilians had been trained for air raids. They practiced bucket brigades. They dug fire breaks. They believed discipline and unity would protect them. They did not understand what was coming. No city had ever experienced what Tokyo was about to endure. On the evening of March 9, families prepared for another long night. Children slept fully dressed, shoes by their beds. Elderly citizens prayed quietly. Mothers packed emergency bundles, not knowing they would be useless. Sirens had sounded so many times without major consequence that many ignored them. At 11:36 p.m., the first B-29s appeared over Tokyo. They flew low, almost leisurely. No bombs fell at first. They were pathfinders. Marking targets with burning flares that lit the city below like a map made of fire. Then the main force arrived. More than 300 bombers, spreading out in carefully planned formations. They did not aim for factories. They aimed for neighborhoods. The first incendiaries fell silently. Small canisters that burst on impact, scattering burning gel across rooftops, streets, and tatami floors. Firefighters rushed in. But within minutes, hoses failed. Water pressure dropped. Flames spread faster than men could run. The wind intensified, feeding the growing inferno. Fire leapt from house to house, block to block, merging into walls of heat. The temperature rose so quickly that oxygen was sucked from the air. People collapsed, suffocated before the flames reached them. The firestorm had begun. And Tokyo had no escape. This was not a bombing. It was an execution carried out from the sky. The incendiaries did not fall all at once. They came in waves, methodical and merciless. Each B-29 released its payload with cold precision. Thousands of small firebombs scattered across Tokyo, bursting into rivers of flame on contact. The city responded as expected. Fire leapt upward and outward, racing through alleys and wooden structures faster than any organized response could contain. Japanese civil defense units were overwhelmed within minutes. The bucket brigades collapsed. Fire trucks burned where they stood. Streets turned into furnaces. The wind became the true weapon. It pulled flames forward, bending them sideways, forcing them into windows, doors, and lungs. People ran, but there was nowhere to go. Bridges clogged instantly. Canals boiled. The Sumida River filled with bodies as civilians jumped in desperation, believing water would save them. It did not. Many drowned. Others were boiled alive as burning debris rained down around them. The heat was so intense that asphalt softened and swallowed shoes. The night sky turned red, then white. Human shadows were burned permanently onto walls. The air itself ignited. Oxygen was consumed at such speed that people collapsed mid-stride, gasping, suffocating, never touched by flame but killed by its absence. Mothers clutched children until both stopped moving. Families vanished in seconds. No warnings. No shelters strong enough. No escape routes planned for this scale of destruction. The Japanese government had never imagined this kind of attack. Their defenses were built for bombs, not for firestorms. Anti-aircraft guns fired blindly into the smoke. Fighters never reached the bombers. The B-29s flew undisturbed, their crews watching the destruction below. Some were silent. Others cheered. They had been briefed thoroughly. This was not accidental. This was deliberate strategy. The goal was maximum burn. The bombers targeted densely packed residential districts. Shitamachi, one of the oldest areas of Tokyo, became the center of the inferno. Traditional homes collapsed inward as flames consumed their paper walls. The fire fed itself, growing stronger, creating its own weather system. A massive updraft pulled air from surrounding areas, intensifying winds to hurricane strength. People were knocked off their feet, dragged into flames by invisible force. The sound was indescribable. Not explosions, but roaring. A continuous scream of fire mixed with human voices. The city was alive and dying at the same time. Emergency broadcasts failed. Radio stations burned. Telephone lines melted. The imperial palace, protected by fire breaks and stone walls, survived, a silent witness surrounded by annihilation. But outside those walls, Tokyo was being erased. By dawn, the bombing slowed. The bombers turned back toward the Pacific, leaving behind a city that no longer resembled a city. Smoke covered everything. The sun rose over a blackened landscape where neighborhoods had been. There were no landmarks. No streets. Just ash and twisted metal. Survivors emerged slowly, many burned beyond recognition. Clothes fused to skin. Hair gone. Eyes blinded. People wandered aimlessly, calling names that would never be answered. The dead lay everywhere. Stacked where they had fallen. Piled along riverbanks. Charred beyond identification. Children with no faces. Elderly frozen mid-prayer. It was the single most destructive air raid in human history in terms of immediate casualties. Over 100,000 were dead in a single night. More than 1 million were homeless. And Tokyo was still burning. The Japanese leadership was stunned. Reports arrived incomplete and chaotic. The scale was impossible to process. Some officials refused to believe the numbers. Over 100,000 were dead in a single night. More than 1 million were homeless. And Tokyo was still burning. The Japanese leadership was stunned. Reports arrived incomplete and chaotic. The scale was impossible to process. Some officials refused to believe the numbers. Morning revealed what night had hidden. Not ruins, but absence. Where entire districts had stood, there was nothing but scorched earth and drifting ash. Tokyo had not been damaged. It had been erased. The smell was everywhere. A mixture of smoke, burned wood, and human remains. Survivors moved through the wasteland in silence, too exhausted to cry. Many had lost everything in a single night. Homes. Families. Identities. The living searched the dead by fragments. A piece of clothing. A watch. A burned sandal. Mass cremations began immediately. There was no other option. The bodies were too many. Disease threatened to finish what fire had started. Pyres burned for days, sending more smoke into a sky already darkened by war. The government struggled to maintain control. Official statements minimized the catastrophe. Newspapers were censored. Photographs suppressed. The population was told to endure, to remain loyal, to believe in victory. But belief was collapsing. The myth of imperial invincibility had been shattered in one night. People whispered openly now. They questioned the war. They questioned the gods. They questioned the emperor himself. For the first time, fear replaced obedience. In secret meetings, Military leaders argued. Some demanded total resistance. Others recognized the inevitable. The American bombing strategy had evolved. Tokyo was proof. The goal was no longer factories or bases. It was psychological annihilation. Break the population. Burn the will to fight. And it was working. The raids continued. Nagoya. Osaka. Kobe. Each city followed the same pattern. Firebombs. Wind. Firestorms. Civilian death on an unimaginable scale. Japan's air defenses were powerless. Fuel shortages. Grounded fighters. Anti-aircraft guns lacked ammunition. The skies belonged entirely to the bombers. Civil defense manuals became meaningless. Water supplies failed. Firebreaks failed. Shelters became tombs. The population fled cities en masse. But nowhere was safe. Railways were bombed. Rural villages were next. The empire was collapsing inward. Emperor Hirohito was informed daily, shielded by layers of generals and advisors. Some urged him to speak, to calm the people, to acknowledge the suffering. He remained silent. A divine figure could not publicly admit weakness. But privately, the weight was crushing. The sacred land was burning. The people were dying by the hundreds of thousands. And the war was far from over. In Washington, the success of Tokyo confirmed everything planners had predicted. Japanese cities were uniquely vulnerable. The decision was made. This would continue. Until surrender. Or until nothing remained. Yet even as fire consumed the nation, Japan did not yield. The military clung to honor. Doctrine demanded sacrifice. Surrender was unthinkable. They prepared civilians for invasion. Trained children to fight. Taught families to die together rather than submit. The fires hardened resolve in some, even as they broke others. The nation stood at a crossroads, burning on both sides. One path led to annihilation. The other to humiliation. But neither seemed acceptable. As summer approached, something darker loomed. A weapon unlike any before. One that would make Tokyo seem like a warning rather than an ending. The empire had survived fire. But it would not survive what came next. The fires eventually faded, but the consequences did not. Tokyo remained a scar visible from the air, a reminder of what modern war had become. The raids continued through the spring and summer, each one eroding what little remained of Japan's urban heart. But fire alone was no longer enough. The leadership knew it. The American command knew it. The war was reaching its terminal phase. In August, the unimaginable arrived. Hiroshima vanished in a single flash. Nagasaki followed days later. The empire had faced firestorms before, but this was different. There was no wind. No warning. No escape. Just instant annihilation. The destruction of Tokyo had prepared the ground psychologically. The people had already seen hell. They understood now that resistance meant extinction. Emperor Hirohito made his decision. In an unprecedented act, he addressed the nation directly. His voice was calm, distant, divine and human at once. He spoke of enduring the unendurable. Of laying down arms to preserve the future. Japan surrendered. The war was over. The empire did not fall with a single explosion. It burned slowly, night after night, city after city, until nothing remained but ashes and memory. Tokyo 1945 was not just a bombing. It was a transformation. It marked the death of old warfare and the birth of total war, where civilians were the battlefield and cities were weapons. In the ruins, survivors began again. They rebuilt from ash and trauma, carrying scars that would never fade. The streets returned. The lights returned. But the memory remained. Every shadow cast by fire. Every name lost in smoke. The night the empire burned became a warning to the world. A reminder of how easily civilization can be reduced to nothing. And how war, once unleashed, consumes everything in its path.